Today we'll cover two brilliant historical games played by exceptional players. The first game is between Garry Kasparov and Topalov Veselin. This is one of Kasparov's most memorable games that has been dubbed the greatest game of all time due to Kasparov's spectacular performance. After a brilliant series of moves focused on forcing the Black King into a corner and restricting his movement, Kasparov sets himself up for victory.
Stop it, my back hurts.
White opened with e4, known as the king's pawn opening, a classic one. Let's see how Black will react to it in his starting moves. Black responds with the pert defense, a common response of high-ranking players. This opening creates many complications for White. Nothing out of the ordinary so far. White is developing his pieces normally, and he's moving his queen so the king can castle. Black on the other hand is developing his dark square bishop to g7. This does several things. First, it allows the king to castle. Second, the bishop is adding pressure to the central pawn and the diagonal. Third, it opened many options for Black to react if White decides to attack with his central pawns. Now things are getting interesting. You might ask, why the hell would he do that? Well, White sacrificed his bishop in order for his queen to get dangerously close to the Black King. In response, we see Black moving his light squared bishop, his central pawn. White castles immediately after that, and his queen to open the way for his king to castle, while also attempting to break White's central development with his e5 pawn. In his first move, White removed his king from the open diagonal, tucking him to safety. Then, in his other two moves, he relocated his horsey. But why did White do that? Because Black's defense on the queen side has an opening. Black finally tried to attack White's central pawn, mainly because at the moment Black didn't really have many moves at his disposal, so he tried to create some action in the center. Both sides pushing their pawns. We can see that there is an opportunity for an epic fork. The only thing that prevents it is Black's white square bishop. This horsey will be something Black will have to look out for. Black once again attacks with his central pawn, his target being the knight. Instead of retreating, White trades his knight for the enemy's horsey and he leaves his pawn hanging in the process. White surprisingly sacrifices his rook. What does he have in mind? Shockingly, White offered his second rook, but why did Black not take it with his queen? Well, to begin with, Black may have become suspicious as to why White will trade his rooks almost for free essentially. By the looks of it, White is trying to make Black take his rook with his queen so that the knight can fork these three pieces, as long as White finds a way to deal with Black's pesky bishop. Well, after White checked him, the only move that Black had was to take the knight with his king. Notice how White is cornering the Black King and is restricting the squares he can move to. Even though Black's up in material, he has to be careful. His king's safety is poor and any misplay can lead into a checkmate. White continues to pressure the Black King with his pieces, even his pawns. We see that Black's king is stuck. He can't move anywhere and the only piece that's preventing Black's defeat is his bishop. Isn't that brilliant? White deliberately sacrifices his pieces to force the Black King to the corner of the board and by the looks of it, the game won't last long. As expected, White continues to harass the Black King and seems to offer his bishop too. Black refuses to take it and instead uses his rook to attack the queen. The reason Black does this is because, if he accepted White's bishop, then White's queen can move to c2 and further push the Black King to the right, and his rook will have extra space to move to one of the bottom two squares of the board. Let's see what White will do to save his queen. Brilliant, White perfectly used his rook to save his queen and forced Black to lose his. And there you have it. After Black lost his queen, it was only a matter of time before he got mated or resigned. Even with all the pieces White sacrificed, he still managed to win against Black. As we know, material and king's safety are the two most important elements of chess, and White brilliantly compromised Black's king's safety with calculated moves and took the win. Our second game is between the notorious George Toddlewey and Akbar Rubinstein. People refer to it as Rubinstein's immortal game. The reason for the game's nickname is due to the clever queen and rook sacrifice used to win the game.
Come on, kill me.
Oh, I will.
The development of both sides was pretty standard until black played pawn on c5. This can be considered a variation of the queen's gambit. White declined the gambit. He doesn't want to take black's pawn with his d4 pawn because if he does then black can just retake with his bishop and develop it simultaneously, gaining more tempo than white in the process. This is a symmetrical variation. It's also referred to as a Tarrasch defense. George decided to create some action and initiated an attack. However, whether or not it was a good decision is a debate since Rubinstein developed his bishop, which gives him tempo. Kicking the bishop of the c5 square is a brilliant move. Every piece moved twice in the early stage of the game is not recommended because you risk compromising your position and losing tempo. This queen move will cause George to lose his build-up tempo later on when Rubinstein places his rook on the file. And here comes the rook, breaking George's tempo, but removing your queen from a file that the enemy's rook is placed on is way better than preserving your tempo, since it's a bigger risk to keep your most powerful piece there in case the file gets opened in the future. After all, this rook can do some nasty things if he gets the chance. Rubinstein's light square bishop is very powerful on the b7 square right now due to the horsey on e5. If George doesn't take it, then either the bishop or knight can take the white horsey, which will force George to retake with his pawn and expose his king. Therefore, trading horseys was the best move for white. Initiating an attack with the king side pawns that includes one of the three pawns who was covering the king is a mistake. Even though white wanted to regain his lost tempo and force black on the defense, he left the black diagonal open and the king now has no protection on it. It's also recommended to not move the pawns who are protecting the king when he castles. Compromising your king's safety has many risks. Brilliant move by black. If white takes the knight with the queen, then black's rook will take the bishop and it will become super active. An active rook can be very nasty, especially if it's neatly positioned on the enemy side of the chessboard. Which is why white ignores the horsey and offers a bishop trade. Black not only declines it but threatens to checkmate. We got to the point of the brilliant queen and rook sacrifice. Take a look at all of Rubinstein's minor pieces. Everything is attacking the white king. The brilliant queen and rook sacrifice served the purpose to steer away George's pieces who were protecting the king and open the path for the minor pieces to attack the king. The rook sacrifice, however, was the one that won the game. Its purpose was to remove the queen from her position and leave the bishop unprotected. Now, with the light square bishop involved in the attack, it's clear why black sacrificed his rook. And there you have it, white resigned. With every single piece attacking the white king, it's impossible to avoid the checkmate in the next move. The two main factors that led to white's defeat were his lost tempo early on and because he moved all of the pawns who were protecting his king after he castled. Black capitalized on those circumstances and secured the win.